Great week that we had in our business. Lots of agents starting. Just finished off one of our best months in years. A lot of growth going on. If you're a real estate agent looking for a change, looking for some structure, some accountability, more leads, we have it for you. You can go to jointheduo.com. You can set an appointment on our calendar to talk to our director of growth, as well as apply for any of our open positions. Again, you could do that at jointheduo.com. I want to talk about the Tampa real estate stats. They came out for July. They typically come out the middle of the following month. And they just came out literally just today. Got a lot of things I want to talk about, but as it relates to our market, I always want to preface the things happening in our market aren't always what's happening nationally. The data I may talk about may be different than what you see in other news articles or news stories or on TV or online, simply because a lot of the data that you see online tends to focus on national sales data, like home sales were down in the month of, July, or home sales were up, or year over year they were down. And the reality is we have a hyper-local real estate market that operates on a different schedule and much different than other parts of the country. Our economic situation is much different than our population growth, our seasonality, our prices. So when you hear sales are down nationally or sales are up nationally, don't just assume that automatically applies to your house. It most oftentimes will not, because we just operate differently. So I want to talk about these stats, and if you follow real estate stats, they may be a little different than what you might expect. So the month of July finished with 4,532 sales. Now, that was shy of last month's high for the year of 4,936. And historically, when we look back over time, our peak months typically in terms of sales are usually May and June. And this year we hit 4,900 sales in both May and June. We didn't quite eclipse the 5,000 number. The last time we hit the 5,000 number was in the middle of 2024. So we did not hit a 5,000 sale month in 2025, but we came really close this year with March 49.87, May 49.05, and then June 49.36. July, we dropped down to 45.32, which historically, when we go back over time, July usually does have a bit of a fall off from June. June is kind of the epicenter of peak for us, because you have the families moving during the summer. You've got job relocations that happen during the summer. People want to move while the kids are not in school, and when they have vacation time and they have vacation and come to Florida and buy property, because that's when people take vacation. So we have this kind of peak historically in June. Sometimes it's May, sometimes it's June, but right around the middle of the year. And then there's a little bit of a fall off with July and August historically. And then, through the year, it kind of stabilizes. And then we usually get a little pickup in December. So 4,532 sales. Our average sale price in Tampa was $496,616. Now, we saw some month-over-month depreciation for July. So we saw some loss of value month over month. And over the past few months, our average sale price has been above $500,000. So from December all the way through to June, we hovered between $512,000 and $528,000 as an average sale price. For the month of July, we dropped to $496 for the first time in a while, dropping below that number. And I want to give some color as to why that is the case. First off, at the end of the summer, you get sellers a little bit more motivated. You tend to see annually you tend to see a little bit of a price fall off in July, because again, there isn't as much demand. People are ready to get back to things. And sellers are a little bit more aggressive because they're ready to get it done. They didn't get it done in the time frame that they want, so they're ready to rip the Band-Aid and get more aggressive with price. So we historically do see a little bit of a average sale price decrease in July. Year over year, however, we were up. So last July we're $473,000. This July we're $496,000. That is a gain of $23,000, or roughly 5 percentage point appreciation year over year. So, and again, because that July typically is a lower average sell price than, March through June. A couple of other statistics to pay attention to. 97% is the average list to sell price ratio. That basically means that at the time the home goes under contract, the average is the home is selling for 3% below the asking. That's not 3% below the original price. That's 3% below the price at the time it goes under contract. So plenty of home sellers today are reducing their price, which is a mistake because they should have just priced it right from the beginning. If you don't price it right from the beginning and you have to reduce, you're going to end up getting less money, less demand, and lowball offers because people think you're going to keep lowering it. We also did see inventory bump below 20,000 for the first time in 6 months, 19,159. And month supply inventory has been pretty solid the last few months, 4.23 months. That is, what historically I've been taught over the last 22 years is that a buyer's market is a seller's market is less than 6 months and a buyer's market is more than 6. However, at 4, it's not quite the drastic seller's market that we saw during some of the COVID and post-COVID years where we were seeing less than a month or less than 2 months of inventory. So 4 months is still relatively balanced, but slightly in favor of the seller. I think we saw some of the drop in the average sale price is just, again, more negotiation power for buyers. Interest rates picked up a little bit, and that made buyers less likely to pay a premium because now they're going to have higher payments. The other thing that I think people need to understand is that it is an average sale price. It is not a median. It is an average, and that average is skewed. So if you have an average priced home, you may think that these statistics completely apply to me. My home is appreciating. Very likely, or very possibly, not the case. The average is pulled up dramatically by a lot of really high-end sales. We have more sales above $1 million than we ever have. Our luxury market has been on par with Miami and one of the top performing luxury markets in the country. So when you have a $5 or $10 million sale of property in Tampa Bay, guess what it does? It pulls up the average. And there's not as many low-priced homes to offset that. We're not seeing as many homes sell for $100,000 or below. So the average is being pulled up higher. I would pulled up higher by more luxury sales happening in our market. So it's making some people think, oh, I have an average priced home. The market went up 5% this year. My home should be up 5%. And that rationale isn't actual. There are a lot of people with average priced homes that are underwater. There are a lot of people that bought average priced homes in builder communities where the builder is still building and the builder's offering incentives that you can't beat. And they've lowered their price because they can still make profit, just not the margins they did a year or two ago. And they're still selling homes in that neighborhood for $450 and you owe $500. There are unfortunately still a lot of people underwater, and looking at this data, I want to make it clear all of the data doesn't exactly apply to your situation. If you want to know what exactly applies to your situation, just go to duncanduo.com. You can get a free home value and neighborhood report to know exactly what's going on. You can see whose home is sold. You can see all the data. You can see any of the homes in foreclosure, and you can know exactly what's going on with the data and the pricing in your neighborhood and on your street. Any of these data and average points that I talk about sometimes don't necessarily apply to your property. So again, it is an average. It's a blended statistic. It's not uniform. Average days on market, 75. That means time it's taking to get a home under contract is more than, is about 2.5 months. I think the reason that number is as high as it is because too many sellers are not being realistic about price. In a perfect world, your home is selling within a month because it's priced appropriately. And then you're not eating 45 days of taxes, insurance, and extra mortgage payments. And you're not having to cut your price and signal to the market that you're desperate or that you have problems or that there's something wrong with your house. If you price it from the jump at the right price, it should sell in 30 days. You shouldn't have to negotiate a lot, and you're not going to eat all the money. And you're going to keep negotiating leverage. The second you have to drop your price, the consumer naturally thinks something's wrong with your house, that you might keep dropping your price, that they can negotiate you even lower. And it's a mistake. Your home is worth what someone will pay for it, not what the realtor says, not even what an appraiser says, not what the Hillsborough County tax appraiser or the Pinellas County tax appraiser says. It's worth what someone will pay for it. And if you put it on the market and it's not getting attention and it's not getting offers, that's the market's way of saying you overpriced it. and far too many sellers are, running the SOP or the MO of 2021 when you could overprice a house and everything would sell. That logic is flawed in a market like today, and it's a terrible decision that way too many home sellers. The data does not point in your favor for that to make sense. If your home is selling in 75 days, in a lot of instances, you did something wrong. If it's selling in more than that, you did a lot of things wrong. And sometimes people want to blame their real estate agent. Oh, my real estate agent didn't do this, or my real estate agent didn't do that. You have to accept personal responsibility, and I'm certain that most real estate agents recommend the pricing that's more accurate and then end up taking the listing because you sold them on why your home, because of its, beautiful countertops or, the carpet or whatever that you think is great about your home makes it worth more, when most of the time it doesn't. Too many sellers are more ambitious with their price, and it causes them to lose money, and then they get desperate, and lots of them lose a lot more money than if they would have just cut to the chase, priced it aggressive, got buyers to chase it instead of them lowering the price and chasing the buyers for weeks or months on end, only to get lowballed and eventually be stuck. So the number one thing you can do as a home seller today is price your property aggressively. And speaking of pricing aggressively, the next segment I'm going to focus on home owners, condo owners, specifically condos. I'm going to give you some tips and practices of things you need to do as a condo owner to actually get your home sold. The saturation rates on condos are horrible, frankly. The market for condos is really challenging. Unless you're uber luxury, unless you're selling a really high-end condo in that audience and you've got a really unique product, so many condo owners are so misinformed and so unrealistic on price, and it is just not the time for that. The condo market it is rough. Can you sell? Yes, but you've got to get real about price.